What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Rage Traders NRL Supercoach podcast. Wolfie here. Hope you're doing absolutely amazing. And of course, we're back with another trades, strategy, and captain segment, followed with a bit of a draw analysis for you guys. Now, first and foremost, if you are watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, 5-star review goes a long way. So thank you so much if you do that. Let's get straight into it, Very tough week in my opinion, not only for captains, not only just like even vice captaincy, captaincy options. There's a lot this week. Generally we have like a few options and a couple stand out to us. This week there's a lot more, and mostly in my opinion, the most I've ever seen in a week of NRL Supercoach. How do we attack that? Well, I'm going to give you some options, give you the information, and you can make a decision on that. But first and foremost, I just wanted to show you a bit of a draw analysis. Now, I went over the draw and I just went through, I think, 5 teams that have the strongest draw from round 20 to round 27. Now, obviously, this doesn't include restings because we don't know when they will happen. And buys I really didn't take into account because draws are draws, and at the moment we want to find those good matchups that get us the most points. So I wrote them down here. I know them off by heart, but I'm going to go through this image right here and just explain to you who I think have the best draws. Now, I'm going to start off with the Sydney Roosters. Not only are they versing a Melbourne Storm team who are battling a heavy amount of injuries at home, they then have Newcastle away, who aren't playing their best footy at the moment. North Queensland away, who we know can leak points for sure. Bulldogs, tick, 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 at home. Penrith away is obviously tough. Then they have the West Tigers at home, Dolphins at home, and Souths away. So that's a huge run home as well for them. Really like the fact that Sam Walker can be an option for your team as well. I think he's just going to have a really nice back end to the season. We remember how he started and a lot of people were off him. Well, I think after Origin and after how this team has been performing, the chemistry's increased, plus him having a pretty good Origin series. I just think this team is mostly in one of these games going to score 40 to 50 plus points. Who that is going to be against, I don't know, but I don't want to miss out on that. But yeah, Sydney Roosters to start off with. I will say that this is not in any particular order. This isn't Sydney Roosters are the best. This is just me going through my choices. Next, I'm going to talk about the Sharks. Now, I would say out of all the teams, the closest team that I think that has the best draw would be the Sharks, especially coming off a 66-0 win. They have Newcastle at home, who they generally score about 24 plus-ish points against. I had a look at the team stats and, you know, they still do put up a good amount of points against Newcastle. Then they have Manly away, who have sort of dropped off a tiny bit, especially after the Luke Brooks injury. They then have Souths at home, St. George away, Canberra at home, Gold Coast away, Parramatta away, and Melbourne at home. This draw to me is the best draw out of all the teams for round 20 onwards, and I just think they're obviously making a play because they believe they can win the premiership. They're going to play their best footy towards this back end, and you know, having players like KL Iro, Nicholas Hines, of course, even your Jesse Ramians, Britton Nicholas, your Siona Katoa and Ronaldo Mulatalo, these type of guys could get you some serious points throughout this period. And for me, Sharks just have one of the best, if not the best draws coming into the end of the season. Next, we have to speak about the team right next to him on this is Penrith Panthers. Now, best team in the comp at the moment, accompanied by Thomas Jenkins and Casey McLean Magic. It's a really nice draw. Now, depends what Broncos team turns up tonight. I know a lot of people are really, really sort of coming out of the woodworks and just saying Penrith are going to absolutely dominate. I'm just going to come out on the cards. Now, I could be easily incorrect about this, but you know when you play like your social comps of sport and you basically, you haven't been having a good season, right? But you were a good team last season. You guys weren't bad at all. And then you come up against this team that you've got a bit of a grudge against. In the finals, you might have just lost or just won. and sort of something ticks in you. You're like, okay, we've been here before. And I wonder if this game is going to be a bit closer than what people think. I really, really do. Now, as I said, I could be completely incorrect, and I do think Penrith Panthers will win the game. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's like 22, 24 to 12, something like that, 24 to 10. Now, again, I'd be more scared not to have Cleary have an armband on him or anything like that. It's at Penrith's home. They're coming off a break. Cleary's coming off an amazing Origin series. There's a lot to think about there. But having Payne Haas back, having Carrigan back, having some of these Origin guys that were missing, it is really, really big for them, and I think it's a big boost. However, it's just their wing defense. Anyway, talking about the draw, they then have Parramatta away, Canberra at home, New Zealand away, Sydney Roosters at home, Melbourne away, Bulldogs at home, West Tigers at home. This run is really nice, very close to competing with the Sharks. I think out of all the teams, Penrith and the Sharks have the best draws, and this is really, really nice to see. And I think you have to have a piece of the edge. That would likely be either Casey McLean or Thomas Jenkins. So for me, I'm loading up Penrith, Sharks, very nice to see. And those three teams so far have the best draws. Now, even though Parramatta have not a bad draw, I'm not going to include them. Even though they have bye Penrith, which is tough, but in round 22, it opens up quite a lot for them. You could make a little play here and there. I'm not going to include them. I think it's just silly. The next team I'm going to talk about, fan favorite, I follow them, North Queensland Cowboys. Making a play, obviously trying to just retain their position in the top 8. Dolphins away, Broncos at home, Sydney Roosters at home, Gold Coast away, Parramatta away, into a bye, West Tigers at home, Canberra at home. Now, it really does open up in round 23, starting with Gold Coast away, but Supercoach-wise, and this is what we have to remember, it's not about wins and losses. It's about Supercoach points. And against Dolphins, it could be a 20 to 30 match. Against Broncos, it could be the exact same. Sydney Roosters will be a bit tougher in my opinion. But I just think after that as well, you're really looking at maybe getting a Drinky or someone in around that period, round 23, getting them in for Gold Coast Parramatta by West Tigers Canberra will be absolutely huge for them. Newcastle's a bit tough here. I didn't want to include them. I think it sort of opens up, but with the last round bye, possibly round 26 restings, I don't think they'd do 2 in a row, but I'm not really heavy on that. The next one I wanted to speak about, though, is the Dolphins. So they have North Queensland into a bye, and that's the only tough thing. So if you wanted to wait this week and next week and jump on them in round 22, that could be your play. St. George away in round 22, Broncos at home, Manly away, Parramatta at home, Sydney away. Now that Roosters match, Sydney Roosters away, that could be a resting week for Roosters. So just be aware of that. Then they have Gold Coast away in round 27. So that's a really nice draw. Don't think it's as strong as Penrith, Sharks and North Queensland, but I do think it's a nice draw, and I do think you could pay a bit of attention to the Dolphins like Urasako, Herbie Farnworth, of course, we all have him, and Jack Bostock like that. I wasn't going to go into the Broncos because their form isn't there, and I'm going to do the same with the Bulldogs. Even though there are some nice games there, I can't look into it. I can't do it. And honestly, this is why I kept it at those teams. Maybe there's a team you think that has a nice draw structure. Let me know in the comments below. But for me, I'm going to keep it at that. The only other team I could really think of, and that's just because they don't have a bye, is South Sydney Rabbitohs. But even with that being said, they have Sharks away, Canberra away, who I don't know which type of Canberra is going to turn up. They have New Zealand at home and Sydney Roosters in the last round. So there's some tough games there. So for me, I'm going to stick with those teams, listing the Sharks, the Penrith Panthers, the Sydney Roosters, North Queensland Cowboys, and the Dolphins. So there's a bit of a draw analysis for you. Hope that helps you if you were thinking about some players or targeting some players. Now, we'll mention out of those teams, the Sydney Roosters do not have a bye throughout that period. The Penrith Panthers do not have a bye throughout that period. The Sharks do not have a bye throughout that period. The Dolphins have a bye in round 21 and North Queensland have a bye in round 25. So 3 out of those 5 teams do not even have a bye, which is absolutely Amazing. Let's get into the bread and butter now. Let's talk about it. My trades and what I'm thinking. At the moment, I have 9 trades and a boost left. Really, really tough week. And I've seen some people's teams and I'm like, where did everyone get their money from? It must have been from Simi Sasagi, the early Greg Marju the early Greg Marju trade. Now that he's leaking money, you've missed out on that and banked some cash. So that's really, really nice to see. I'm very close to fading Cleary, but let's talk about my trades first. At the moment, Marju out, Willison out for, I think it's H0ME for feeder, who is a 2RF front row nuff, and Mark Nawanganitawaze in. Now, I know a lot of you are going, well, what about Jenkins? And you know what? I 100% agree. I can boost right now for Jenkins. I would have to force a trade for someone. Now, I can actually go Makasini out, Jenkins in, hold Garrick and Hopewadi, but then it becomes a bit of a reserve battle. I'm very close to boosting out Garrick at 585,000 with 119 break even. They do have the Gold Coast Titans. I will say out of all the weeks in doing this video, this is nowhere near 100%. This is feeling like a 50-50 to 60-40. However, it's just one of those weeks. And if you haven't played Supercoach before, or maybe you have, you know, after the origin period, this is where it gets really tough. Like this is where the calls versus sit versus starts really matter. If you don't know what sit versus starts is, it's basically the people on your bench that you're choosing to not put the reserve on, or just people you're basically sitting and not enabling to get points for your team versus the people you're starting. And you will find throughout these next 7 weeks that you are going to sit people that do randomly well. You're going to sit people that you wish you started, and you started someone that does horribly, and it really, really hurts. So at the moment, I'm thinking of that. Now, if you don't own Olakau'atu like myself, you can easily go him this week. Now, Gold Coast have been defending quite well, especially in the start of their matches, and I wonder if they'll do the same here. They then have the bye in round 22, the Eagles, and they have Sharks in round 21 at Pines Park. So it's a very big call if Olakau'atu comes out and drops a 70-70. I don't know how much I'd like that. I'm leaning more towards someone like a Simi Sasagi or a Hudson Young, especially after dropping his price, but he's got about 120 break-even Hudson Young, so I can't go there. I think I'm very happy with Mark Nawanganitawaze, especially versus a battered and injured Melbourne Storm team. Losing both your halves is incredibly, incredibly difficult. And we all know halves are the essentials to an NRL team. So for me, I'm targeting that. I've even got him as my captain right now. The toughest part of this is that if you don't have Cleary with the vice captain, it gets super, super tough. Now, one bad thing about my team at the moment is Cooper Bye. If I take a vice captaincy loop, it's going to be super, super tough. Because I need him to get at least a 30-40 or else I'm going to be very, very annoyed. Now, any of my players could do super bad. I've got Valentine Holmes up against the New Zealand Warriors, so I can't read into that too much. Also, I'd like to discuss why I'm going Willison over Ryan Couchman. I just think in terms of, well, 1, Dragons have Gold Coast next week. 2, I don't suspect Willison's going to play a heavy minute role, and we've got the likes of Carrigan and Haas back fully fit, ready to go. That really deters me from owning Willison, and if I think there's more chance of me reserving a Couchman in a sit v start scenario than Xavier Willison, unless an injury happened, but we can't predict injuries. Now, easily, if Ryan Couchman, also, it's a break-even difference. Willison has a much higher break-even than Couchman. If Couchman still has lowish minutes, or it's just his minute affected this week, I may look at flicking him next week, and I won't be burnt by it too much. But with Willison, if he comes out and drops a 40 to a 55 with 100 plus break-even, it's going to hurt a bit more. So that's why I'm going Willison. Now, going to front row forwards, I see no need at the moment to bring in Payne Haas, although I'd love to. I just think it's completely overkill. Tarpanay is still in my team. Kalongmatangi and H0ME. Robson and Pascoe, these are going to be my two hookers to the end. Unless something changes with Sam Verrills and Pascoe drops again, I will then maybe look at doing a downgrade. I brought Robson in for a reason. I'm not going to look at Brayley or Grant. I'm just going to stick with this. Very happy with it. My hookers are going to sit there. 5'8" is going to be the exact same thing. Tamari Martin, Purdue, they're going to sit there. Unless any injury or something happens, I'm sticking with that. I really like Tamari Martin as a possible captaincy play. Warriors at home, they're a different beast. They're really good. Talking about my 2RFs, and this is, I'd say 2RFs in the centers of the positions I really need to start getting premiums. Tallis Duncan against Canberra, going to be very interesting. Hosking against South is going to be really interesting. The one thing is we also have to factor in is we can't have every premium possible. Now, I've seen a lot of teams out there have Dylan Lucas, Olakau'atu, Jenkins, Marky Mark. I have no idea how you got there. I just missed out on money somehow. And this is where I've got to hope that maybe a Garrick or a Hopewadi step up and get me some good points. Now, I'm definitely holding on to Bostock for this week. He may move next week, but super, super happy with him. And I think he's going to be a season keeper for me. I really do. I see no reason in moving him. I'd much rather move a Garrick, Hopewadi, and a Holmes over Bostock any day of the week, in my opinion, especially with Manly sort of not playing the best footy lately. Iro, he's going to sit there. Farnworth's going to sit there again. And the fullbacks. Let's talk about the fullbacks. So who I'd be targeting out of all these. Now, there is a chance, not being talked about a lot, but you could look at a Dylan Edwards with the Penrith run. I really like Tedesco after he comes back from HIA. And I think there's a definite play possibly on Keanu Kinney. Now, this is obviously looking at pods. If I go, Jenkins, Marky Mark, Hamoli Olakau'atu, I really am just matching a lot of other teams. And maybe that's what I need to do to just attain points and say, look, this is where I'm going to finish as a season. Now I'm going to flip the script. A part of me is telling me just to do one trade this week and hold. Maybe I can go Willison out, get Olakau'atu in, and just sit tight. I'm more scared this week of Marky Mark than Jenkins. That could be the dumbest comment ever. Now, I could get both in for sure. I can boost, get Garrick out, Jenkins in. Now, if Jenkins came out and dropped to 65-70 this week, I don't know how happy I would be about that. I really don't. So if I can play for carnage to occur and people to lose a lot of trades and get caught out to the back end of the season, there's more chance of me gaining ranks through holding trades than trying to make pod plays and burning my trades. So that's the way I'm thinking. Now let's go through a bit of a captaincy run through and who I think are great captains this week. Obviously for Penrith Panthers, it's either Jenkins or Cleary. Cleary's obviously leading that. If you wanted to go the straight C, do it. It could be a bit of a closer game than you think because Broncos are, a premiership team. No matter what they did, they will never forget the grand final. They know how Penrith play. I don't expect it, but with Payne Haas and Carrigan back, it could be a bit tighter than what you think. Cleary is the obvious vice captaincy play. I think a lot of people haven't talked about Hines this week again. For me, this is something at Ocean Protect Stadium, a Newcastle team that, yes, they do well against halves and fullbacks. Sorry, I'll take that back. Sharks do well against halves and fullbacks in terms of holding their scoring, but we have to remember that this Sharks team had their best performance in the whole season. Now they're playing at home against Newcastle, whose defense hasn't been amazing. If you wanted to skip on Cleary as a vice captain, you could easily vice captain Hines. Now, if you wanted to be really safe this week, you could easily go Penrith Panthers, Nathan Cleary vice captain into Hines captain. I would be all for that. Get it out of the front of the week and watch your footy. Now, if you wanted to go center wing analysis, I think someone like a Marky Mark could be absolutely huge, or a Sam Walker this week. Could be really, really nice to see. I think they're going to score 26 plus points this week. I really do against Melbourne. I just think they're going to be absolutely shot. Even I know Harry Grant is there, but look, that he's a hooker position player. He's not someone that's just going to define the game without his players around him that he's used to playing with that are core position players. Canberra versus South, I wouldn't touch this game. Not at all. It's just, I don't know which way this game is going to go. I don't know which Canberra we're going to see, and I don't know what Souths we're going to see. New Zealand versus St. George, interesting one. Tamari Martin, I think, could be another safe pick, but with the likes of Hines and Cleary putting up their hand, I think you would most likely prefer to go that way. Again, if you were a crazy man, someone like Cam Pereira, that could be a play for you. Tamari Martin is a safer play. Bulldogs versus West Tigers. If you really want to be safe this week, I think an Alex Twal will have a pretty strong game this week. I would rather Twal than May, in my opinion. I think he's going to have a pretty nice game. He'll get you an easy 70 or 80, and you don't have to worry about things. Gold Coast versus Manly. I would be very hesitant this week to do Turbo. I don't know what Titans team will turn up, and I don't know what Manly team would turn up. And I think it's tough taking risks at this end of the period or the season. Again, Turbo would be the only one I consider in this game, or an Ola Kawatu. Dolphins versus North Queensland. This could be an absolute points fest. You could look at a bounce back for Dolphins and just go Herbie Farnworth and be super, super safe. North Queensland, you could look at a Drinky. I just think with the origin ins for the Dolphins, I'd be leaning towards Dolphins to win this game. Asako even could be a play. Really, really like it. But for now, the safest plays, I think, are Nathan Cleary, Nicho Hynes, and Tamari Martin. A bit of a boring captaincy, but again, I think it's just a halves week. You've got 4 halves here putting up their hands. Nathan Cleary, Nicho Hynes, Sam Walker, and Tamari Martin. That's my advice anyway. Let me know what you're thinking of doing in the comments. Again, you can most probably tell that I haven't made my mind up, and it's just things that I'm pondering at the moment. Even reserving Purdue is something that I'm really thinking heavily on. But I don't know. North Queensland didn't play amazing last week. Just got away with the win. I think Dolphins will bounce back, so I'm just going to maybe sit him for this week. Again, sit-B starts are massive in this period. Even running a Lukey over a Ryan Couchman, I may just be better getting a flat 60 from Ryan Couchman and saying, look, he's going to be a tackle bot, but again, these are the decisions that are going to be hard to make in this period. Looking at, just quickly, for those of you that care for this, we'll go to the trades this week and just talk about who's coming in. So I'm going to go in the top 1% teams. The biggest trade this week is Xavier Willison to Payne Haas. A lot of people getting Payne Haas in, which I guess people are just in a bit of front row forward trouble, but I'm going to wait one more week on this. I just don't know if it's going to be a Penrith blowout. It's going to be less time of him actually running the ball, which scares me a bit. So I'm going to wait one more week on this. A lot of people going Tanella Paseka, Tarpanay, Xavier Willison to Payne Haas, even Ryan Couchman to Payne Haas. I'm not saying it's a bad trade whatsoever. I'm just saying that I would prefer to wait one more week, considering the front row forwards that I have. Any one of my front row forwards could get injured, or my 2 RFs, and I can use my duality with 2 players I have, 2 RF and FRF positions, to swing things up and then make the right call on an injured player. Nathan Cleary, he's coming in. Crazy that people don't have Nathan Cleary in the top 1%. That's wild to me. For Xavier Wilson, Greg Marju for Payne Haas, Cody Walker to Nathan Cleary is another trade. A lot of people downgrading to get cash from Greg Marju to James Walsh from the Cowboys. It seems to be a Nathan Cleary Payne Haas week. If I go to the top 10%, we'll most probably see a bit more different stuff. Simi Sasagi in the 10th trade for Greg Marju, not a bad trade whatsoever. And overall, we've got Jaden Campbell coming in for Munster. That's interesting. Wow. Tyron Wishart, that's a bit of a downplay again. Jackson Ford, he's coming out for Payne Haas. The fact that people still have Jackson Ford in their team is absolutely wild to me. And nothing much. People still trading in Tamari Martin. Wow. Latrell Sigwalt, he comes out for Nathan Cleary. So getting the big honchos in, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Anyway, guys, that is my trades captain's strategy and a bit of a draw analysis for round 20 of NRL Supercoach. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting me as always. I'll see you on the next one. Wolfie here from the Rage Traders. Peace.